All right. How is it going, everyone? I'm going to restart that actually. Sorry. All right. How is it going, everyone? Hope you're all having a great morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for tuning in to the Forward Thinking Founders podcast. Today, I'm super stoked to have Cadran Cowensage, the CEO and co-founder of Elpha, chatting with us today. So Cadran, how's it going?
Hi, it's going really well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's nearing-ish the end of the day, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation to just jam out about tech and a lot of different topics. So I'm looking forward to it. So let's just dive right into it. So you started this company called Elpha. For those who don't know who are listening, can you give everyone an idea of what Elpha is and why you started it?
Yeah, for sure. So Elpha is an online community for women in tech. And so the idea is that it's a place where women in tech can come to talk candidly online. And so our members come to Elpha to talk about personal and professional development, for company advice, to find support and to make friends. And I originally started Elpha because I basically didn't feel like I had a place to talk to other women in the industry. I felt like there weren't other communities out there where I was getting to know my, potential coworkers and co-founders and investors, and really build those connections. And so I wanted to have that sort of candid, real honest place where people felt like they could talk about really sort of sensitive and serious topics and also fun things, in a comfortable way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Can you go into the a little more of the details on what an average user of Elpha kind of sees when they log in, or even if someone just goes to the website? I'm on elpha.com and
Yep.
I see it's almost Reddit style, but it has a really cool spin to it. Can you just describe the experience for someone if they're going to elpha.com right now?
Yeah, for sure. So it looks different if you're a member versus if you just go to elpha.com and you're logged out. So when you're a member, you basically become a member by applying. And then once you're in, it's sort of Reddit-y. It's definitely got a different look and feel. The intention is for it to be sort of friendly, moderated forum, right? And so our members can post questions, post advice, share their thoughts, just sort of put everything out there about their lives and their expertise. And then we all have conversations around these various topics and the news, essentially like things you would be familiar with if you've seen a forum before. And then every member has a profile where we highlight the conversations that they're having and their expertise. And we have direct messaging as well. So if you see a profile of somebody that you're interested in, or they post something that's really interesting to you, then you can send them a note. We do group messaging as well. So if you are having a really interesting conversation with a group, but there are some pieces of it that sort of feel like you don't want them to be shared with so many people, you can go ahead and have a group conversation in private. And so the idea is really to create the tools to facilitate building those real, authentic relationships, and have those continue on into the physical world.
Ooh, that's an interesting way that you ended that. It's having these online relationships or that kind of carry on into the physical world. How are you, or how do you plan to take these relationships that are being built online and bring them into the world? Are there meetups? Are there physical locations? Also, feel free to think about like what you would like there to be in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So my co-founder and I are both, we come from technical and product backgrounds in tech. So I'm an engineer and she is a product designer by trade. And so we very much are focused on the online component to start and sort of creating the space digitally for everyone to get to know each other. But I think I think we're definitely seeing the trend that people don't want to just exist online, right? They want to have relationships online that are in service of relationships offline. They want to, be spending less time in front of screens, right? And so part of what we think is important for Elpha and the future of Elpha is creating the place where you can develop those relationships and maintain them if you're not in the same locations, but then also, get together in real life. And so that for us is, we do meetups now, but I think we'll do just a ton more of events. It will be, social gatherings. It will be sort of technical, more like expert focused tactical events as well. So like getting advice about how to, build your startup, or, having coaching sessions and things like that. So I think there will be a lot of that kind of sort of in-person collaborative content. And then I think, we could potentially have a conference. We could potentially do all sorts of meetups in different locations. Right now, our members actually host their own meetups, which we love. We get a few of those every month where folks in different states where, we aren't physically located will actually host their own, and we'll send them stickers and things like that so that they, they have some Elpha swag for when they all meet up. And then, we love to see their pictures and things like that. And so I think we'll just keep developing that, and hopefully, as we grow, be able to put more resources behind it.
That's awesome. I think what's interesting about Elpha is that, as I'm sure obviously, and many people in the world know, there's been, I would say, a need for something like this for a long time. I mean, with conversation about diversity in tech and whatnot, and women in tech, I think what I'm most interested in regards to Elpha is what it can lead to, and not necessarily the product, but kind of like the movement, what it stands for. Can you go into a little bit on is Elpha more than a product? Is it a movement, or is it a start of something that could grow into be something much bigger than just a product that people use or a meetup that people go to? I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think, empowerment of women through technology is something that's happening right now. I think we're just at the beginning of it. Women are hungry for the tools and the services that are built basically for and by them. And so, one of the things that I think is so important about Elpha is that I'm actually building the software. My co-founder is actually designing the product, right? We are women building for ourselves. And so, I think women are just hungry for products that are thought through and built for them. And as women are getting more and more engaged with building the products themselves, with starting their own companies, it's they are becoming more powerful. They are going to be amassing more and more wealth and being able to put that back into the industry. And so invest in more companies, diverse founders, where, the sort of identity and experiences that they have allow them to develop, much sort of different and more interesting products than what we've seen. And so I'm super excited about this movement. I think it's going to be huge, and it's going to create, just a ton of interesting companies and products. And also, it's going to have a huge impact on society as well. So.
Yeah, I agree. As a part of that shift, as a part of that change, something that I noticed that Elpha is doing is I don't know exactly how to say it, but you kind of look at companies and you're gauging how fair are they to, how diverse are they, or how is this company, is it equal, or is this company fair to women, or is there a pay gap or anything like that? I'm curious, can you expand? I'm not super educated on that, so you can tell me that part of your company, and tell me, as that grows, what kind of changes do you think that tech founders, women, female or male, starting companies today should be thinking about when in regards to building a company that maybe someone from 10 years ago wasn't thinking about when they started a company, and then this wasn't much of a conversation?
Yeah, sure. I think that the culture of the company and, who the employees are, what the composition of your company's employees is something that people are thinking about a lot more. Like, how do you have a diverse set of employees and retain them and make sure they're really happy and, doing their best work at your company? I think that's something that people are recognizing is, if you want to basically have a diverse group of people and a culture that is, comfortable for everyone, you have to start thinking about it really, really early in the life of your business. And so, there's a lot more content online about that. There's a lot more, focus on inclusion. I think, founders are, prioritizing that a lot more. We're definitely seeing that. We have a lot of companies that reach out to us that are interested in partnering and working with us because, that's something that's top of mind for them. And so we've started to partner with companies where making sure that they're providing, opportunities and access and a great culture for their female employees. Making sure that they want to do all those things, that we're starting to partner with them. And so it's been really interesting. And there are trends that I'm starting to see in sort of the way companies are thinking about their culture. But the way we've sort of approached those partnerships is that we asked our members, we said, what are the things that you care to know most about companies that you feel like you don't know usually when you're looking for jobs or when you're evaluating where you want to work next? And so, we got a ton of feedback about like the information that isn't typically available and questions that go unanswered and all those kinds of things. And so through that exploration, we put together basically a list of questions that our partner companies answer when they start working with us about, salary and how many women do you have in leadership and, what happens when there's a conflict at work and, all of these kinds of things that, you don't typically know before you start a job, but are really, really important. And because women are in, a minority group at a lot of tech companies, and very often you're the only woman on your team, these things become a lot more critical to know up front. And so, our goal is to basically provide as much information about these companies as we can to our members. And I think it's also very telling about every company's culture, right? So through each of these profiles, you get such an interesting sense for how, one company is different from another in terms of how they speak about their team and their product and, in terms of how they structure their policies and all sorts of things like that. And so just sort of making the companies a lot more transparent, I think is really, really helpful.
It's needed. It's big time needed. A company that will go unnamed, but the company I was at some point in my life in the last 5 years, I joined the team and it was a large group of males, and which is still common. But I brought up and it wasn't just me, a few of us brought up, hey, when we're hiring, look at the room, guys, let's think about other aspects of who we're hiring. And honestly, it's not good that there's 11 of us and we're all male. How does that, if we ever want there to be a good representation or equal representation, we have to think about that now. And the response was oh, that doesn't, it doesn't really matter. We just hire for the top talent. I'm just yeah, but women are girls are freaking awesome. And I was appalled at the response. Luckily, I have my own company now, so I am controlling that, which is good. I am very conscious of the conversation, and I'm excited to grow the type of company I want to be a part of. But what you just said is necessary. There are a lot of companies that don't think about that, and it goes unnoticed, and they just do their thing, and it's uncomfortable for, in my opinion, it might be uncomfortable for a woman to join 20 employees in after the first woman. So I think that's awesome. I love what you're doing.
Oh, thanks.
I'm curious, 2 questions. In 20 years or in 30 years, it's hard to imagine because so much can change, but what does the world look like because Elpha existed? What is different? Not just 2 years from now, but if you really go a decade or 2 from now, what changes and how does that change the kind of trajectory of tech and representation in tech?
Yeah, totally. So I think the tech industry will be more equitable, right? And that women will not feel alone at their jobs. They will have the support they need. They will see other women in the industry who are more senior, who are, executing, and, they will know that they have those role models and they can do that too. And there's just going to be more and more women who are taking on bigger and bigger roles and more influence in the industry. And the network is just going to become more and more powerful, right? And, the cool thing is that so many of these women want to give back and support sort of the next generation. And so, we see that now where very senior women join Elpha, and they, their goal is basically to provide advice and insight and help the next generation. And so we can build this hugely powerful network where women are getting funded, women are starting more companies, more engineers are joining the workforce, engineers that are mid-career who would have otherwise left are now staying at their jobs and becoming VP Eng and CTOs, and they're having an influence on, what their culture at their companies looks like, and they're hiring more, women. And so it just will have an incredibly transformative effect in terms of what the demographics of the industry will look like. And then, just in terms of products, right? People who have different views of the world and come from different backgrounds and have different identities just naturally think about product differently because, they empathize with, a different set of people. They see products in a different light. And so, all of a sudden it's just products will work better for more people, so I think it's really exciting. And I think, that's the world I want to live in. So I'm very excited for that.
Well, the good thing about that is that it's a world you want to live in and you're building it. Like,
yes,
it's
exactly.
Entrepreneurship. A couple more questions. So if I have this right, I believe you have gone or are currently going through Y Combinator.
Yes.
And I know that Y Combinator, for those who don't know, Y Combinator is an accelerator in San Francisco, in the Silicon Valley. They are responsible for a lot of the companies that you might have heard of. And Elpha is a part of Y Combinator. And what I've noticed about Y Combinator is they have done a very conscious push about in regards to diversity by not just funding more women-led teams, but tracking it and having a conference called the Female Founders Conference. I'm kind of curious, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Y Combinator's stance on this, but also like what are some other organizations that you've noticed that are actively thinking about the problem and taking steps to consciously solve it, like what I'm noticing YC is doing?
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting. That's a really good question. So I can't tell you YC's stance at this point because I used to be an employee there, but I no longer am. And so, I think you have to ask a YC spokesperson to speak to that. But YC is definitely, their goal is to fund every founder who is building a company that has the potential for success. And, that is not just white men, right? That's, tons of other founders. And that includes people who traditionally may not have started startups or would not have had access to capital. And so, it's very, very important to make sure the funding is well. And so I think the only way you can really, be aware of whether there's bias in your process or whether you're sort of following whether you're accountable to what you say is by tracking it and having numbers. And so I think they're doing exactly what they should do by keeping track and holding themselves accountable and sharing those numbers publicly. So I think that's great. In terms of other companies, I think Project Include, for example, they have a program where they help startups basically figure out how to be inclusive to people from all different backgrounds. And a lot of what they do is around education, but then also reporting. And so those companies report stats as well. And so the companies that are really focused on that and are open to sharing their sort of data and stats and how they're doing, I think are good examples of ones that are really forward thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome to have an insight into that. Um, another question that I have, and you can answer it in whatever way that you want, but I would love to know, outside of yourself and anyone on your team, who are the most badass female founders that you know of that are building companies now or have built a company, and why?
Yeah. So Tracy Young of PlanGrid is one that comes to mind, and she's a YC founder. She's doing an AMA with us actually. I don't remember when, I think in a month maybe.
Nice.
And they just exited. So that's super exciting, around $1 billion. And she's just super hardcore. You know, she has been just building her business, grinding it out, sort of no bullshit. And, you know, that's a sort of mentality that I really admire. Um, uh, and then Jen Rubio of Way, of course. She's been in the news a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
Super impressive. Emily Weiss Glossier is also really impressive, and you know the way she's built such a powerful brand. So I think there are quite a few, and it's exciting that there are so many, and that the billion number is now being thrown around with female founders, and that there's just going to be more and more.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a few names in there that I recognize and a few that I don't. So I have some people to look up. One of mine, who it's not even, I would just call it potentially one of my favorite founders, period, is Mathilde
yes.
from Front.
Yes.
Her take on startups, and not just her take, but how she is running Front and how she talks about it is very refreshing to another fairly young founder. And I just think the way that she's thinking about everything about running her company is so beyond her time. And it's just kind of a role model for me. Like as I'm running Big Loft, she's just killing it. And she's talking about how she's killing it. And she's, I just think it's cool to see one female founder is killing it, but I personally, I like when I see people that are maybe a little younger, because it's kind of inspirational for me, because I'm also a fairly young founder at 25. So when I see people like 30, 31, 27, whatever, you're absolutely crushing it. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. Like anyone can do it. You just got to surround yourself with the right people, have the right mindset, product, etc.
Totally. Matilda's awesome. She actually did, she spoke at a dinner recently at YC, so I should have mentioned her too. She's super impressive. And I think one of the things that's so neat, that was so neat about hearing her speak is she's just super candid and, super real like that. And, that's sort of what we go for on Elpha too. So I love that spirit where she's just being very honest about, what she's good at, what she's bad at. She's good at a lot of things, which is really exciting. She's, super hardworking, and she's got a lot of really interesting ideas about how to build a great company, how to build a great culture, and how to I think especially one of the things that's super interesting is how to retain employees. And so totally agree. Like very, very very knowledgeable and mature for her age. For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I have one last question before I go into the final question that I always ask. And so it's almost asking for advice as I build my company.
Yeah.
Something that I think a lot of founders, male founders, have to think about is I know more male guys, that in my friend group than girls, just because that's how I grew up. So when I hire and make sure that I'm interviewing equal amounts and just fair opportunity, what are some ways that you suggest that someone like me make sure my bias isn't getting in the way, and I'm making sure the opportunity is seen by everyone everywhere, not just my network, which is skewed slightly to men, because that's
totally. I think that's totally normal. I think that there's a few things that you could do straight off the bat. I think in terms of bias, one great thing to do is actually write down the sort of the qualities or the skills that you're looking for in a person. So don't just say culture fit, say, what does that mean for me and my company? And then, make sure that the things that you write down are measurable, not things like she's nice, but things like she has, a background building web products, or, she values, she values in-person teamwork, things like that, so that you can sort of have more concrete information to sort of measure your interview against and measure the person against. And so that helps you eliminate bias for sure. And then in terms of making sure your candidate pool is diverse, I think you have to, go to where the people you want to hire hang out and make sure that they are actually seeing your job description, that they're familiar with your brand, thinking about how you're building your brand in an inclusive way, the language that you use in your job description, the language that you use to describe your brand, all of those kinds of things. And, very often the people that you want to hire aren't looking for a job right when you want to hire them. So the more you can sort of put out what you're about and, get on these, great candidates' radar ahead of time, the better, because, I think, at least from my own experience and in my network, it's very true that I don't just go look at job descriptions, right? The first thing I would do in a job search is go ask my friends, which companies are great to work at, which have you really enjoyed working at? And so, making sure that, all these people have heard of you and that they can say, oh, I just read an article about, this great company. Here are the 5 reasons why, its culture seems like it could be a really great fit. I think, having that kind of information out there is really important. And so, there's a lot of places that you can post that a job description that women will discover it. And, a very good one is Elpha.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic answer and very educational for me. So thank you.
Cool.
So my last question is, you're building the future. You have this brand and this movement and this product that is attracting women in tech from everywhere to unite and kind of help them figure out how to get into tech and talk about challenges and whatnot. And you're actively building the future. So what advice would you have for someone listening to the podcast who wants to build their own future, who might be interested in something but doesn't necessarily know where to start? What would you tell that person?
Yeah, so I actually started building Elpha while I was working at Y Combinator as a side project. And it was a side project for a long time because, I was kind of scared about it. I think because I wasn't sure what the business model would be, and I wasn't sure, how to scale it and all the things that everybody is scared of. And I think that you just have to, jump in and go for it. And, give whatever you want to do, whatever you're thinking about building a try. And so my advice is to, actually build it, go do it. Don't wait. Nothing's as scary as it seems.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first. Thank you so much for hopping on to Forward Thinking Founders. I really appreciate your time and the knowledge that you spread with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you got it. And if you're listening, thanks for listening. And I will see you all next week for the next episode of Forward Thinking Founders. Have a good day, everyone.